it's going to be really quick 30 minutes around the topic of artificial intelligence and application security. This is by no means the first time that I'm talking about this thing. So there's probably many people there on the other end of the line who has seen me talking about these things before. But before I start, few facts about the reality that we've been in for almost 6 months now, that there is a lot of weird stuff going on. By weird stuff, I mean that there's a lot of criminal stuff going on, and there's a lot of bots and stuff that we don't really like to have around us. There's a lot of amateur stuff happening. And one main thing that I have seen throughout the whole last 6 month period is that email security is not in order. Before we can even talk about difficult stuff like, let's say, cloud security or application security or even artificial intelligence, we should kind of fix also things like email. That's why I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about email security, because what I've noticed, and while working remotely and dealing with a lot of customers still from remote, email seems to be in really bad shape. There's a lot of things that you can send through email and it works. There's like a lot of phishing attacks that you can do and it always works. All the human hacking techniques are always utilizing email as part of that. And one of the main things that is in the cloud is your email. There might be companies that say that, hey, we haven't gone to cloud security at all, but your email is already there. And if there has been a situation where you have purchased just whatever the email security solution you've been offered by the cloud service provider who's taking your email, you probably haven't checked, is that solution really good or not that good? Because one part of the email security is artificial intelligence. Because if we really want to see what's going on inside your email, it takes a little bit more than just signatures or some standard recognition methods to figure out what's going on with your email. That's why there are all these fantastic tests that I'm sharing here that are pointing out like how good or how bad certain solutions are. If solution is expensive, it doesn't mean that it's good. You might have really, really expensive solutions that are not something that you should pay for. So that's why, please, this is like, we have known already for 20 years that email is not secure. And you can also teach your people to be aware. When they get mail, you can teach them. We have this fantastic new thing called FortiFish. You can send phishing mails to your users and they look pretty real. And if you end up clicking those, you will get educational video and we get like understanding how easily your employees might be phished through email. Okay, not more about that. That's just my afternoon rant for this day. Let's go back to my favorite topic, which is the application security and API security and artificial intelligence. So these days, nothing's really out of scope. It has never been out of scope. Like whatever you can do, whatever you can study, there's always YouTube video for everything pretty much. So I could guarantee that my small kid would be able to do a lot of advanced hacking just by watching YouTube videos. And so it means pretty much anyone can be a pretty decent hacker. So now when we are sitting at home, we have a lot of free time in our hands. That normally leads to a lot of weird stuff that wouldn't normally happen. But when we prepare for cybersecurity attacks or we prepare to this whole digitalization leap that has taken place within the last 6 months, approximately, because everybody has to work from home, we need to consider those new aspects. And something that is not still very well understood when we start talking about application security is that when we do digitalization, we create a lot more APIs, we create a lot more digital data that is pretty much held behind applications. So we need to do that security right. But also we need to understand that the digital attack surface is different than if you had some old analog stuff somewhere, or you had just like physical paper somewhere. It's different thing how you protect your information. And what is always the enemy of information security is the complexity of the solution. So things shouldn't be too complex when we do cybersecurity, no matter which aspect it is. We have seen throughout this year that there has been a lot of new attacks, mainly ransomware attacks, but also we have seen a lot of growth in API-related attacks and application-related attacks, where there's more information targeted all the time because of the whole digitalization leap that took like leap of 10 years in 6 months. And a lot of times in these kind of evolutions, we don't see that security to have a lot of part in it. There's a lot of attention towards the leap that is being made, but not really to the security aspect. And one of the main reasons, you can tell me that I'm wrong, you can argue about this, but is that human brain is the only analog component in this digital world. And we have not understood completely the complexity of this situation. When we do digital leaps, that happens exponentially, and human brain is evolving linearly. So there's a linear growth in a human brain. So it takes a lot longer to evolve compared to what happens in the digital world right now. So when we want to protect against cyber threats and cyber attacks and cyber vectors, we need to help ourselves with artificial intelligence. And good example for that, what has happened for the last 9 years at Fortinet, for example, and I haven't been here for the whole 9 years. I came here 2.5 years ago. But what I was super impressed was that we were already using in 2012 actively our own self-developed artificial intelligence to produce the threat intelligence data from multiple different sources. We collect information from a lot of places. So we have a lot of partners, and we have a lot of alliances where we get that information, which we also feed with the information that we produce. A lot of the information that we get in, we handle with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we can refine information that wouldn't be refined by people, or which wouldn't be refined by scripts, or which wouldn't be refined by some signatures to actionable data in that sense that it would actually work. And since we are talking about application security, there's a lot of zero-day attacks, or for example, malware that we have seen over 6 months before it actually started to happen. So we start to see those weak signals already a lot earlier because of this whole process. Using machine learning, and actually use this kind of federated machine learning to have all these aspects covered, and to have those indicators of compromise vectors well understood. We do data that we can use in multiple different places. We can use this in networks, we can use this in endpoints, we can use this in web application firewalls, in ADCs, in sandboxes, in honeybots, or well, like, I don't know, like any kind of aspect where we go, everywhere we have already done things, like in CM systems. So UABA, like the web part, the user entity behavior analytics, for example, is getting a lot better because of this. Using artificial intelligence on the background of solutions makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of mathematical aspects that our brains are not able to comprehend. You can be as good as you might think you are, or maybe you are really good, but still you can't see everything. We can see most of the time very narrow path in front of us, and very narrow part of cybersecurity when we talk about technological part of that solution. And still, technology is not the whole solution that covers everything in cybersecurity. That being said, my favorite topic always has been the web application firewall, like many of you know. But there has been evolution. For example, I was super excited for ages about web application firewalling when it came to be like as actual products, and I learned this stuff very, very early on. But I also figured out that it's very difficult process to learn. It's a difficult product to learn, no matter who was making the product 15 years ago. These days, we have things like CI/CD pipeline, so continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline, where web application firewall has to be part of the solution. Unfortunately, a lot of those old solutions that we have seen and loved for ages don't work for this. And let me explain why. What happens is there's a new code that is pushed for application. There is a new deployment that wants to be made, but there is a legacy web application firewall, which basically breaks the application. Well, here it just says blocks, but it actually breaks the application, which then means that there's a problem ticket, which goes to the web application firewall admin, who has to reconfigure the web application firewall so the end user can enjoy the code. And this is one of the major reasons why we don't see web application firewalls almost anywhere, because a lot of customers are afraid that the web application firewall will break the cycle, or there is not enough capable web application firewall administrators available, because this can be very intensive job to be done. I had a customer in my previous job and also in this current job that I'm doing who had like 20 people maintaining their web application firewall infrastructure in a bank because of this problem that is explained here. When I came to Fortinet, I went there and started to explain that, hey, we can do this with machine learning. There is actually a better way of doing this. And they were like, okay, tell us more. While I was telling this story, I got this feedback that, are you now saying that we don't have job anymore and when we have the machine learning there? It doesn't mean that. So it's not replacing people. But the whole process there is that when there's new code, there's machine learning that will learn the new code, the new entry to the application, and the end user is enjoying the benefit. Many times the initial feedback here is like, oh, well, this is not possible. Can you explain me more how the process is working? I could simplify this that way, that we built mathematical model of the web application, all the variables in the web application, all the parameters in web application, and then we start to understand what is normal and what is not normal, what is abnormal in the web application behavior and the usage behavior of the application. So this basically leads to a situation that we know what is anomalous traffic, what are the anomalies that we might experience, and according to those anomalies, we can do deeper inspection. So this process looks something like this. We get good stuff, we get bad stuff, and we get something in between. So we will filter that information. We will do very basic stuff like IP reputation filtering, DDoS protection, protocol validation. We use signatures, we run antivirus, we do DLP, we do all that good stuff, and that's doing a pre-filter. But on top of that, there is still stuff that we are not sure, is it malicious or not. So there's a second layer of filtration where we kind of identify the bad stuff, and that will get blocked, and good stuff will go through. If you have some benign cases, those will actually go through because those are not bad things. The first phase here is based to hidden Markov model. So we have the mathematical model of the web application firewall, or the web application itself, or the API, or the usage of the web application. And second stage is support vector machine, where we do deeper analysis, which is then able to do decision, are we going to block something or not? What this leads into is that we get very few false positives and very, very few false negatives. So there's a lot less logs produced by this process that require deeper investigation. And there are very few things that you need to do over time to modify the configuration of web application firewall. This is very powerful. For me, this was something that I couldn't believe myself. I was like, oh, it cannot be true. Why my previous employer didn't do this, because this is doable. But then again, I realized that not every company in the world can keep up in the market. So that means that if you have been around for 20 years and you don't do active product development in the middle, you might miss opportunity like this. Then the next big thing that I learned very early on here was that we do actually a lot of different things. Yeah, we can do like basic appliances. Like we can say, yeah, if you want to get traditional appliance, cool, you can get it. You can get virtual machine, that's fine. You can do it in public cloud, that's cool too. But then we do containers. That was something that I was surprised, because a lot of those cloud native applications that we see these days are based into containers. They are orchestrated with Kubernetes, and then there's containers. The whole application is in containers. So why not to put the web application firewall close as possible to the application itself, or being part of the application itself? So we can do it in containers. We were the first, and we are still the only one that is actually doing that. I know that there's lovely competition out there that wants to do this, but it's not easy if your web application firewall takes 3 gigs. In our case, it's 100 megs, where you can fit the whole web application firewall, because we do that CI/CD pipeline thing in-house. From that, we have created SaaS solution. And the SaaS solution here is cool as well, because we can provide that from any public cloud. So this basically means that we are hosting in all of these public cloud locations close to you and your customers web application firewall service, which you can activate directly from the marketplace, or you can go to the website and activate it from there and test it for 14 days for free. What that does, it's cloud native. So if your application is running, for example, in Azure or AWS, or maybe in Google Cloud, we have deployment in that same cloud location. If we didn't have it, we will have it immediately once you deploy your web application firewall, and you have exactly the same feature set available there as you would have on-prem or in the virtual machine version. So they are equal to each other. So if you want to do API protection in cloud, you can use any of the versions that we offer. It can be any of these. You can do your API protection, you can do your anti-bot solution, or you can do your web application protection using machine learning in any of these form factors. So what happens once you decide that you do something in your application security scheme? If you decide that you deliver your web application from Azure, well, there will be the closest Azure location to you selected, and there will be the deployment of the web application firewall. If you have selected that you are in West Europe, well, there's a deployment to West Europe. If you're in Northern Europe, or Northern Europe in Ireland, you will be getting deployment there. If you use Google and your application is running in Finland in Google data center, you will have your web application firewall there. On top of that, you can actually use this one with free of charge CDN capability. There is no additional charge. As far as you go to web application firewalling, you get CDN. CDN also means that you are better protected against DDoS attacks. We don't charge anything for it. We have DDoS protection over there, but it's not charged feature yet. Let's put it this way. It hasn't been charged ever since we've introduced this whole thing. So go and figure. I'm not the product line guy here. I'm just a sales engineer in Finland. So anyways, the whole thing here is that you can do web application firewalling wherever. The main things that you need to protect against when you do web application firewalling are the bots, are the API related threats and the web application related threats. All those factors can be protected using machine learning. And currently we are the only one in the market that is actually doing that way. If you want to get more into the specifics of the process, let's have a separate meeting about that. And I will also include the meeting room QR code in the end of the presentation where you can join and have chat with the local team plus me afterwards. Okay, after I have talked so much about technology, then there's time to think. Basically, if you think that the technology that you have selected can solve your whole security problem, whatever you're dealing with, you don't really understand the problem and you don't really understand the technology. Well, I could say that, hey, you don't understand anything, but there's like the factor when we are looking into web application security, for example, is many times like that you don't understand the web application that you need to protect, but you understand the tool that you use to protect the web application. By using the tool, you understand the problem and you learn the problem and you learn to solve the problem using the technology. But a lot of times, especially these days when we go really, really fast into this whole digitalization thing, we need some help. And the help there in other factors as well is the artificial intelligence. Yeah, we don't need an application that is telling us which ones are docs and which are not docs. Or like in Silicon Valley, there was an application that was saying that is it a hot dog or not, which then made like hundreds of millions of dollars. So if you didn't know is it a hot dog or not, you take a picture and the application will tell you is it hot dog or not. But in cybersecurity, a lot of the basic stuff can be outsourced directly to the machine learning and artificial intelligence and the deep learning and neural networks kind of thing. So what the machine learning is able to see, it's through math, is something what it claims to be. Yeah, we know that, for example, in case of duck, yeah, it walks, it quacks like a duck, and it swims like a duck. Cool. So that kind of features, all of these are actually filling, but these are not able to fill that criteria. So ducks and no ducks. Well, we have actually developed inside Fortinet some solutions that are actually filling this criteria. The problem was early on in 2010, 2011, that there was a lot of samples coming in and we didn't have enough resources to look after that information, all of the information that was coming in. Because I can't underline enough, no matter what kind of security we are doing, this kind of solution is pushing a lot of information towards us. Hundreds of millions or hundreds of billions of samples these days. Back in the day, it was hundreds of millions of samples per day, which had to be filtered. What is somehow relevant and what is not relevant? That's why the machine learning and artificial intelligence are helping there. And now when we talk about web application protection, we have the machine learning there, but it was actually for this reason, because a lot of times there are zero-day vulnerabilities in web applications that we can't recognize and there is no patch for it. So there had to be better mechanism than just like, let's say, signatures to recognize that there's something wrong or something that we have teach ourselves like manually to the solution. So this is like one step towards that. So then what we ended up doing is FortiAI. This is on the background of every solution that we do. When we do web application protection, when we do network security, when we do zero trust access solutions, in everything like that, on the background, there's this FortiAI. And one thing that we have used ourselves for a very, very long time, is one of the subcategories of this product that we built for ourselves initially is the virtual security analyst. So when we push a lot of information, some information coming from web applications, something coming from the network, something coming from zero trust, maybe from remote working environments, the virtual security analyst is able to understand what is good and what is not good kind of thing in an automatic manner. So let's say layer 1, layer 2 security operations function can be done by virtual entity. And this doesn't mean that people are losing their jobs. They can just concentrate to more serious stuff and more demanding things. This is like, as kind of last side note here before I'm going to end, that there's a lot of evolution related to this thing that we first kind of came out with the web application firewall that is able to do all this security stuff. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we came out with that. And now we start to see a lot of other products from our categories that are utilizing the same artificial intelligence and machine learning over there. We have this in email security. We have this in our CM solution. We have this in our honeypots. We have this in our sandboxes. We have this in the background information of our firewalls. We don't claim that we have machine learning in the firewalls, but all that information that is coming in there is handled by machine learning and the artificial intelligence. So if you want to see API protection, API gateways, all that thing done in machine learning, then please contact us and we will demonstrate that to you. Otherwise, it's very boring to see if I just show some GUIs over here and how that works. So I decided not to spend my time any further with that today, but there's, in the last slide, there's a QR code and you can get into our virtual meeting room and discuss with us more about this topic later on. And there's also my contact information if you want to send email or you want to contact through LinkedIn. You can find me from there as well. So there's all relevant information there. And it's in a QR code because it's a lot easier to scan from there than just written link. So thank you very much.